Good morning. We'll be talking about fundamentals of wine grape vineyard mechanization today. So, as people are getting ready to prune their vineyards, there's lots of questions about how to do this with machines. So, when you look at the typical characteristics of a vineyard operation, majority of them are going to be irrigated and they're micro irrigated. They're mostly dependent on hand labor. And there's a dichotomy between family farms versus industrial farms, but majority of the vineyards are family farms. So once they're pruned, crop is produced, so on and so forth. There's also a transportation cost to the markets that's might be holding the growers back, but a majority of the labor operations cost in a vineyard are the in-season practices. So we are dealing with a traditional industry where change can be slow and it can take almost a decade to adapt new practices. There are some factors that are driving mechanization and mechanical management in our vineyards. And number one is the timeliness of our cultural practices. In California, in the United States, average vineyard size is approximately 100 hectares. So you can imagine how long it would take and how large of a labor force it would take to get through a vineyard for pruning, shoot removal, or suckering, or leaf removal by hand. Because, in industrialized countries, there's a lack of a willing labor force willing to do this work. Cost of labor in the United States for vineyard work is approaching $32 an hour in 2022 prices. Reason for this is there's quality of life and socioeconomic factors why people might not want to do agricultural work, because vineyards are far away from population centers. People have to drive to these locations to do this work, so quality of life might be lacking if you're a pruner or a regular agricultural laborer. The other problem that we might be facing in the near future is land availability and costs. So we have seen a consolidation of vineyard land. So vineyard land size has increased, and therefore, you need a large labor force to work these lands. And there's also foreign competition where these grapes are grown and the products they produce might be going into the mid-tier wine prices. So there's a lot of foreign competition that's trying to take shelf space from these growers. We can do lots of things in our vineyards mechanically. When you look at the three commodities of our grapes, such as wine, raisin, and table grapes, we'll just focus on wine grapes for now. Approximately all wine grapes are mechanically harvested, so that's not a topic of this conversation. When you look at in-season practices such as pruning, canopy management, crop load management, so on and so forth, where you can have a physiological impact on the grapevine, this is what we will focus on. So a lot of vineyards are pre-pruned mechanically, but there's also vineyards that are precision pruned, which is a box hedge that final pruning is done 100% by machine. When you come to the canopy management, such as leaf removal, shoot removal, hedging, and shoot positioning, a lot of the vineyards that do leaf removal, 45% of the acreage, we see that leaf removal is done by machine. Shoot removal, there's a good percentage of vineyards that are doing mechanical shoot removal. All vineyards are hedged by a machine. And shoot positioning, this is done sparingly by a machine. And when you come to crop load management, some vineyards do remove fruit by machines if it calls for it. There's a checklist designed for vineyard properties for successful vineyard mechanization. You need to have a high plant uniformity, straight and healthy trunks. Cordons need to be established and straight, and they need to be tautly put onto the cordon wire. You need to have an ideal spur density, and this ranges from 21 to 42 spurs per meter of row. Pruning mass needs to be in the moderate to a high range. In cool to cold climates, we like to see roughly about a half a kilo of pruning weight per meter of row. In warm to hot climates, we expect to see approximately up to 1 kilogram of pruning weight per meter of row. The training in the vineyard has to be uniform, and the cultivar market potential has to be high for this mechanization to be profitable for you. The fruit maturation that you choose has to be adequate for season length at your vineyard location. Trellis and training system, which we will talk at a different video, we usually use a single high wire, vertical shoot position, or quadrilateral systems for this purpose. And assemblies need to be stout. Line posts need to be tall and galvanized. Cordon wire has to be at a uniform height with very little undulation. Row spacing has to be wide enough to accommodate a harvester and other implements going through. Keep in mind, anytime you go over 1,200 vines per acre, there's no more benefit to the grower. Irrigation supply has to match at least 80% of the crop evapotranspiration demand, and you have to have an irrigation line that's suspended above the vineyard floor. When you look at trellises from a California point of view, we have California sprawls, vertical shoot positions, quadrilateral systems, single high wires, and head-trained systems. When you look at the practices that we do, such as pre-pruning, final pruning, shoot removal, leaf removal, crop adjustment, trunk suckering, and harvest, single high wire is the most adaptable one because it's designed for this purpose. VSPs sometimes work. However, due to effects of climate change, we are not seeing many VSPs being put in, especially relaxed VSPs, which you cannot mechanize. Quads are quite popular if you can afford it. And California sprawl, these are being replaced with single high wires as well. When you look at the desired dimensions for end posts and wires used in mechanically managed vineyards, single high wire is the most common one that's being planted. Approximately 70% of new acreage in California is going into this type of system. The diameter of the post is approximately around 3 inches or 73 millimeters. They're quite long, and they will have a double spade to accommodate the forces that are going to be borne on the trellis. When you look at the trellis systems used in California, a single high wire system can be 150 to 170 centimeters tall, and high quads are approximately 170 centimeters tall. They're essentially the same system. One is a single canopy, the other one is a divided canopy. The high quad will have a cross arm 100 to 120 centimeters above the cordon wire, and they're usually not shoot position. So in one of them, you have about 35% of the exposed leaf area. The other one, since you have double the canopy, you'll have 70% of the exposed leaf area. And you get into a production approximately about 18 months with these systems. Of course, depending on the cultivar and location you grow, you can expect 22 to 40 tons to the hectare with single high wire. With a high quad, you can expect 25 to 52 tons to the hectare, depending on the cultivar and the location where your vineyard might be. Single high wire, as the name suggests, is just a single high wire that's suspended above the vineyard, and each vine there's a stake. In this installation, we had beveled stakes that are beveled to deflect the forces of the wind. There's no other wires in this vineyard, and that hence the name single high wire. You can see that the stake sticks up approximately about 2 inches above the cordon wire, but this stake is hidden behind or underneath the spurs. The idea of this system is that the pruning head of a mechanical pruner doesn't have to open and close as it's going around the stake. So you get the most efficient pruning and shoot removal in this case. High quad is essentially the same system. You separate the cordon approximately 3 feet to 4 feet, and then you let the shoots grow up and sprawl over the top tee. Some people overgo the forego the top tee, so they can move through the vineyards faster. Dormant pruning in mechanical systems is done during the dormant season, but people have to watch out for incidents of rain. Severity will define the bearing surface, how tall you want the bearing surface to be. Final pruning can be, as we have done here in this single high wire vineyard, where the spurs were pruned approximately 2 inches above the cordon wire, and this will define the yield capacity of the vineyard. When you look at costs, spur pruning, hemp pruning a vineyard is approximately $1.22 per vine in 2022 prices. Cane pruning with tying is approximately $1.50 a vine. Pre-pruning is you prune them to 6 inches tall, then you come and adjust the spur number. By hand is approximately as expensive as cane tying, and you see the box pruning a single high wire, the cost here, how economies of scale can happen. So you go from $1.22 per vine down to 22 cents per vine as you're running this through with a machine. Here's a video of mechanical high pruning in a high quad vineyard. Of course, in single high wire, it would work as the same. This machine has 2 operators in the back and a tractor driver in the front. You can see that this is pruning the vineyard at a precision height and a spacing, as you can see. And at this point, the tractor is driving approximately 2 miles an hour down the road, which would indicate that these were half-mile rows. So you're pruning essentially 2.75 acres in an hour. So you're pruning 1.5 acres per hour with this case. So what will happen in this vineyard is after bud burst, approximately when the shoots get to be about 15 to 20 centimeters in length, they will come and shoot thin this vineyard to adjust the crop load and the leaf area so that they can have consistent production. Next step in mechanizing vineyards is mechanical shoot thinning. Of course, mechanical shoot thinning, we start shoot thinning with dormant pruning, but there are 2 types of shoot removal. One is trunk suckering. The suckers along the trunk need to be removed to push the growth up to the aerial portions of the plant. Then you have the cordon shoot thinning, when the cordons are up to 20 to 30 centimeters in length. Usually in frost-prone areas, people wait till all danger of frost has passed. What shoot thinning does, you can reduce the density of shoots in the canopy. But this has to work hand in hand with what kind of irrigation schedule you're following. It is a very efficient method of crop thinning. It assists in the establishment of spur positions. It reduces pruning cost in the next season as well. The cost per acre can vary between $160 to about $300, depending on what time of the season you do, if you're doing double rows, if you're doing this mechanically or by hand. But of course, when you're doing it mechanically, you can get your cost down to about $160 per acre. As I mentioned, mechanical management, you can do the trunk suckering by machine as well. Mechanical trunk suckering can go through the vineyard at a very rapid pace. In this case, the mechanical trunk suckering is driving approximately 3 miles an hour down the road in this half-mile row, which is 0.75 acres in size. So when you're doing this, you're essentially doing 1.5 acres in approximately half an hour with one operator. So it really helps out the grower for these tasks when you cannot schedule a farm labor contractor to come in and do this. Mechanical shoot thinning. In this case, this is a non-selective process. You do need to understand the differences between non-count shoots and count shoots, and you need to set a target of shoot density in this vineyard to go through and do this approximately where you want to be. As I mentioned, we're shooting for anywhere between 7 to 11 shoots per foot of row, anywhere between 21 to about 35 shoots per meter of row. And this machine can set the number of shoots you would like, depending on the cropping potential and the market you're chasing with your vineyard. What you get with mechanical management is a consistent yield. In an experiment that was done with a Syrah grapevine, as I mentioned, this needs to be combined with proper irrigation methods. So vineyards were either hand pruned or mechanically box pruned. And in the mechanically box pruned vineyards, shoots were thinned to 5 shoots, 7 shoots, or 15 shoots per foot of row, approximately 15, 21, and 45 shoots per meter of row. And then irrigation was put on as like a consistent sustained deficit irrigation all throughout the season, or with an early deficit or with a late deficit. What worked out best for the grower in this case was mechanically box pruning the vineyard to 7 shoots per foot of row, and combining it with an early season deficit between fruit set and veraison, then ramping it up to 70% of crop ET demand to get the best yields in this case. And of course, everyone has questions about the berry chemistry of this. Hand-pruned vines do not end up with the best chemistry, and that's what we found out through the last 15 years of research. You get the better phenolic chemistry with mechanically pruned and shoot removed vines. If you did the mid-crop load treatment with mechanical pruning and shoot thinning and an early season deficit, you get the best anthocyanins, best tannins, and best total phenolics in the grape berry. Of course, we carried this out to the wine and looked at the flavor potential of these. If you need this information, direct message me and I can get you that information as well. Berry and cluster thinning will sometimes be done. Two schools of thought. Some people like to do it pre-bloom, but most of the time it's done post-fruit set thinning. We see the most beneficial responses if applied when the berries are BB size. Post-veraison applications of berry removal or cluster removal has no physiological benefit to the vine. Mechanical fruit thinning is done exclusively by a harvester. What they will do is they'll go through the vineyard and then pop off the berries at a low revolution rate to balance the crop in this case. Of course, effect of cluster numbers and canopy variables on fruit composition. This has been done for the last 150 years. Removing fruit does not necessarily benefit the canopy health or canopy performance. What it does is it moves the ripening date a little bit earlier by increasing the total soluble solids in the vines that have a little bit less fruit on there. Leaf removal is done mechanically, as I mentioned. It can be done on both sides of the canopy, but most of the time it's going to be done on the shade side of the canopy. The cost, as we're looking at this, doing this by machine, is approximately $160 per acre, so it saves quite a bit of money when you look at it doing it by hand. Lots of equipment available for leaf removal types. There's suck and cut type of leaf removals. There's air blast type of leaf removal implements. There's rollover type of leaf implements. We've seen the most benefit for sprawling type of canopies with the rollover type of leaf removal implements because they're somewhat selective, meaning that there's little to no damage to the flower cluster if you're doing early season leaf removal. or no damage to the clusters if you're doing post-fruit set leaf removal in this case. Mechanical leaf removal, as you can see here, works as such. If you set a window on the baffle of the implement, and you can open up a window anywhere from 6 inches to 18 inches, from 15 centimeters all the way up to 50 centimeters of window to introduce some airflow and some solar radiation into the canopy to get the most beneficial effect. So we usually see this applied in very dense canopies to provide some relief from the mutual shading that you might get from over vigorous vines. Now, of course, everything has a cost. We have run these trials, and this has, made sense with a lot of the growers because, people are paid by the tons they produce. So we did nothing, control vines, or we did a pre-bloom leaf removal or a post-fruit set leaf removal. We either applied a sustained deficit irrigation or regulated deficit irrigation for these. So pruning cost was all the same. Leaf removal cost, when you do it by machine, labor cost is approximately about $30 per hectare. Irrigation applied will change whether you do a sustained deficit or a regulated deficit. Irrigation water cost will change. The last two columns are total skin anthocyanin production. How much anthocyanin you're producing per hectare, and how much it's costing you to produce phenolics or desirable compounds in these grapes. So the yield in all these treatments was essentially the same. There was no statistical difference. But by changing one treatment, such as doing a pre-bloom leaf removal in this case with Merlot in a Lodi district in California, we saw the total anthocyanin production almost double. So we go from 1,000 grams per hectare to almost 2 kilograms, 1,900 grams per hectare. Of course, when you're producing more phenolics, your unit cost is going down by almost half. So this was consistent over the years as we ran these experiments. So this ran true with a lot of the growers that were growing stuff on a procumbent or a drooping type of canopies. So here's some take-home messages. There's no silver bullet. Consulting is necessary if you're converting vineyards from hand pruned or hand managed to a mechanical. Each vineyard is unique. Not all treatments will work in every vineyard. You cannot prune, shoot, then leaf remove in this sequence to get the most benefit. You have to develop your own style. For red wine grapes, what we found is incorporation of our early canopy growth control is key to build up flaminate composition and retain it later in the season. And you maintain this by a little bit of shoot removal, a little bit of irrigation management. When we see green flavors, which we rarely see in California, we see an early season exposure is the only thing that works. Then you want to close up this canopy, but still get some dappled light in there. We can increase fruity jammy flavors. Late season exposure enhances them, but it does decrease yield due to shriveling out raisoning. So, everything in moderation works. For white grapes, crop load management rather than canopy management is what works, is what we found out. So a lot of this stuff is, available. This is an open access article, Mechanization of Pruning, Canopy Management and Harvest in Winegrape Vineyards. That's in an American Journal of Enology and Viticulture journal. You can get this, and look at it. And a lot of this stuff is there in detail. If you have, more questions, don't hesitate to direct message me. And hopefully I'll see you later in a different video.